The Pit Press Podcast.
Reinholz launches from downtown. No. Van Horn, no. And that's it. New Mexico with it.
Some big-time games and shots. How about this? Where have you been? MC knocking him down twice. Looking Toppin, keeping it alive. House from knee. Got it. This kid is amazing. This is what got them in trouble. That ball screen giving up the mid-range. Look at this foul. House again. It's Toppin. Fifth assist.
And New Mexico's going to dribble out the clock. The Lobos three-peat as conference tournament champions Kendall Williams fires the ball into the air. But New Mexico wins it this afternoon 64-58 over San Diego State. And the Lobos claim the Mountain West Conference's automatic bid into the NCAA tournament.
Welcome to another episode of the Pit Press Podcast. I am your host, Ryan Tamori, and we continue our Lobo Legends series, talking to former players that are alumni, not only of the university, obviously, of the athletic department, and a lot of focus has been lately on former basketball players. And if you were at the Air Force game on Saturday, they honored a lot of former players throughout the generation, so that was very cool. Before I get to my co-host on this particular episode, I got to thank more people that pay the bills. If you're looking for a place to watch the Lobos when they are on the road, head over to Turquoise Desert Tap Room. It's only a few minutes away from the Santa Ana Star Casino. Catch the Lobos, other college basketball games, NBA and NHL action as well. You got spring training coming up, or actually spring training's in full swing. Stop by for food, drinks, and basketball, hockey, football. Turquoise Desert Tap Room also serves local brews on tap. Did I say football there? Football season's over. Find them on Facebook and Instagram at Turquoise Desert Tap Room. Abrazo Homes is Lobo owned and Lobo operated, and a proud supporter of the University of New Mexico Athletic Department and its student athletes. Join the movement and help Abrazo build momentum by contributing to 505 Sports Venture Foundation or the UNM Lobo Club. When you buy an Abrazo home, as I always say, Ed, not bad for a honky and a Pollock. You become a part of the Abrazo familia. Looking to build the perfect home in New Mexico, find them at abrazohomes.com. And I'll mention that story again. Ed, my grandmother asked me to say something nice in Spanish for her, and I said no habla español, and then proceeded to go to Polish Mass in central New Jersey at 7 a.m. every Sunday morning. My co-host has been a Lobo fan since 1970, and he is the voice of the Western New Mexico Mustangs. Ed, I'm wondering if you're recovered from two things, being in Silver City and then the Air Force loss.
You know what? I called it escape from Silver City because, I told you we had been 4 for 4 and getting out on that plane at 5 o'clock on Saturday. The game went into overtime. And it turned out, though, we could have made it. The guy at the airport said the plane didn't leave till 6. So I was really ticked off. And, nothing against Silver City. It's just when I want to come home, I want to come home. The second part, I always told you that when the Lobos lose like that, it's a hangover without the alcohol. I've recovered. We've kind of moved on. But, we'll talk to our guest about that. And he still keeps up with the Lobos. That was a devastating loss. And there's no two ways to put, the season's not over. They can still, salvage some things here. But the air went out of the NCAA bubble, man. That's the way I look at it. But, hey, life goes on. I had to wake up this morning still. My feet hit the floor. I'm still alive, baby. So we're good.
That's the truth, ain't it? All right, our next guest as we continue the Lobo Legends series. In 2 years with UNM, the UNM men's basketball team, he scored 1,157 points. He averaged nearly 20 points per game. He's one of 4 Lobos to score over 1,000 points while only playing 2 seasons. That's quite the stat. His career average is fifth best in UNM history, and he was a WAC selection in 1986. I'm going to say I don't have the notes there. Sorry. He was an all-WAC selection in 1986. Sorry, that's me with the typo there. And was drafted by the Los Angeles Clippers in 1986 in the 7th round of the NBA draft. His name is Johnny Brown. Thank you for joining us. Sorry, I messed up that WAC selection thing. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. For having me on your show, Ryan.
Appreciate it, and I'll throw it to Ed.
JB, man, hey, it's good to see you, brother. It really is. And, when people see this, they're going to be like, what happened to the rest of JB? Not that you were ever fat at all. Strong, chiseled, man, always, right? We had some battles back in the day at Johnson. I never was on your level, but hey, I didn't back down either, man. Those are some fun games. We lived at Johnson Gym, and so I should have been studying more. I got my degree, got my pension, finished it. But I look back on some of the time I spent there, like, man, I was there 4 times, 5 times a week. Johnny, we want to ask you first about your career, your high school career at Manual Arts High School, and what led you to play first. People forget this, Loyola Marymount. Tell us about your high school career and what made you want to go play at Loyola Marymount.
My high school career, we had a great high school career. I went to Manual was one of the first high schools that opened in Los Angeles at the city schools at the time. So I went to elementary school down the street, and when I was in the 5th grade, I used to go down there and go in the gym all the time and tell all those great players that I used to go up there and watch high school games, that I was going to be a player up here, and they was going to watch me. And they had 2 players that were all city players. Like we duplicated when I played at when I played in high school. That but I had an All-American, and they had 2 players that were great players that went on to play at Texas with the Longhorns for Abe Lemon, and they were Coach City Players of the Year, and but I was an All-City Player of the Year, and my teammate was he was an All-American, McDonald's All-American 4 years in a row, and he was a City Player of the Year, and we won a city title, and great experience. But I didn't start off as a great player. I was 5'7" in the 10th grade, shot up a little bit in the 11th grade, and then in the 12th grade, I grew to be 6'5", 210 pounds. Looked like a beast, but it was a great experience. And during that process, there was an assistant coach that worked for Gary Coulson when he was at Pepperdine, and went along with him and worked with him at UNM. I used to watch UNM when I was growing up on this TV channel called KCAL, Channel 9, and they broadcast a lot of games out of the state. And of course, during that time, the one year I watched them, they had a guy named Michael Cooper. And Michael Cooper High School, which is CIF affiliate high school, but it's still outside the city, in the city. Produced a lot of players, and I grew fond of watching it, and I said, wow, that's a great place. That would be a great place to play one day. But during the process, following all these schools and being recruited coming out of high school, which I was heavily recruited, a late addiction, but back then there wasn't an ACT score. So there was an SAT and an ACT score, but you wasn't judged, or admissions wasn't using that as a barometer at the time. And the year before it became sort of used, the SAT, and I didn't have my grades posted when I was coming out of high school, so it affected my recruiting, and then once I got it, my grades all sorted out and set, the recruitment picked up. But during that process, back then, the coaches used to be out all the time. So our program in high school was really good. Played at they have a summer league called the Watts Summer Games, and there'd be over almost 1,200 schools participating in this single elimination tournament for 2.5 weeks, and that starts on a Friday, and it goes all night. I mean, all night. You could play one weekend. As long as you keep winning, you'll probably play 7 to 8 games, and you get bracketed in the section, and you'll just stay there for probably that weekend, and then once you get out of that section, the next week will be the week to the Final Four, and it was huge. And my high school, when they had that tournament in the summer, because it was like a summer league to keep guys off the streets and keep them busy playing, and you get a chance to see your returning players. So we had a really good class my junior year. And just backtracking a little bit, and how I got to Loyola, and those guys would come and follow us, and we play pickup. We play pickup and get ourselves prepared for that tournament, and so we won that tournament back to back. But my first year we won it when I was going into my junior year. That's when I got all my notoriety from the local schools. UC Santa Barbara with Ben Holland as an assistant. The guy that was at Utah, Pim.
Jerry Pim. Yeah.
Those guys, they sent me my first letter. Santa Barbara.
I don't mean to interrupt. Great nickname in all of college athletics, the Gauchos.
The Gauchos, yes. The Dome. Yeah. But anyway, so just cutting it short. Loyola, I used to go up there and play pickup. And that's how the schools would always try to figure out somebody that knew you, and they get you up to, hey, you come on up to the gym, come on, play with our guys. Well, when they saw I could play with their guys as a junior, they're like, oh, wow. But see, our coach in high school, he was a first-round draft pick of the Golden State Warriors, and he didn't make the team because he broke his ankle. And back then, in the 70s, when you hurt yourself before you got to camp, you probably wasn't gonna make the team. So he was now he was my JV coach, and so he brought a lot of NBA players to play pickup with us. And the rule was we couldn't guard our teammates, and we always had to have at least 2 of our players on the court. So you playing against pros like Freeman Williams, Darwin.
That guy was tough. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I remember Freeman. Yes.
So and he went to Manual Arts too. He was a Manual Arts.
I didn't know that, man. Freeman Williams was one time the leading scorer in the nation. He came and played here against the Lobos. I still remember that. Johnny, you transferred to UNM after 2 seasons at Loyola and Marymount. It was said because they didn't have your degree that you needed. And Gary Coulson saw you play in a summer league game and offered you a scholarship. Tell us a little bit about that. Coach Coulson, rest in peace. We did a memorial show on Coach Coulson. Tell us a little bit about him seeing you and offering you a scholarship.
Well, it's funny, you're funny you say that story. The story is that I was talking about Bob Tate. Bob Tate worked for Gary, and he was there with Gary his first year at UNM when he got the job, and he was after Lobo Gate, and so I tried to go to several places, but there was a lot of changes going on with coaches. And I'll give you a short story real quick. There was a kid that grew up in LA with me, and I knew him really well. He played at Oregon State, and he was transferring to Alabama. And this is the year I was calling my coaches myself, because my high school coach always told us to make the calls yourself, get on the phone, don't use no agents, because you don't know what how guys. I can call and get this ball rolling. But anyway, so Bob, when I was transferring, Bob said he asked me the question. He says, I can call a good friend of mine. You know him too real well. He's at UNM. What do you think about the Lobos, University of New Mexico? He said, I went out there, I worked. It was, I'm a California boy. It was tough for me, but at the end of the day, you do good. Have you ever been to New Mexico? I said, no, I've been through there, but I never stopped. And so long story short, I called a few people, And then, but the one story that stood out was really funny. It made me realize how coaching and things are, and people. So I got Wimp Sanders' number, and I called the office, and I talked to the secretary, and she said, "Oh, hold on, he's in the office right now." Well, I knew Wimp was always there, and I didn't want to call the assistant coaches at the time because they don't hold much weight. You just got to go to the head coach. So I knew my numbers were really good for sophomore without even getting a touch. I averaged 13 and 9, and I was second leading rebounder in the league without even getting a touch, without even getting the offense called to me. So anyway, I call this guy, get him on the phone, and he says, "Hey, this is Wimp Sanders, head coach at Alabama." I said, "Well, hey, coach, how you doing?" I said, "You got a good friend of mine from LA. His name is Daryl Neal. He transferred from Oregon State to your place, and he's had some great success there, and he's going into his senior year. How about if you like to look at my stats and give me a chance to talk to you about getting a scholarship and getting an opportunity to come play for you?" And the first thing he says, "You average 13?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "And 9 rebounds?" I said, "Yes, sir." He says, "Well, oh man, I gotta hang up this phone, man." He said, "Click," and hung the phone up. And as he was getting off, he says, "There goes one of them SEC schools sending me playing some kind of joke on me." I was like, and I never called him back. And then
That is a funny story, man. And then, of course, you end up here at UNM, and you had to sit out a year. And Ryan, go ahead. That third question is yours.
As a junior, you missed some of the season with a foot injury, but had an immediate impact, averaging nearly 19 points. He had over 6 rebounds as UNM went 19 and 13, 9 and 7 in the WAC. You beat Texas A&M in the NIT before losing in the second round to Fresno State. What are your memories of that season?
well, UNM had a great athletic trainers. They've always had good athletic training program, and LEF Todim
Yep.
trainer, may he rest in peace. He great guy, old school, hard nosed, and I played. My foot was broken for about 4 weeks, and I remember when it got broke. I mean, when I cracked it, I heard it crack and everything. But it was a non-weight bearing bone. But it was painful, but it wasn't painful because I was pretty tough. And once we took the X-rays, we was icing it all the time. Once we took the X-rays, told us like, "Oh wow, we got to get him off. We got to get him off the court. If you want him to play the season, we got to get him off the court." And he kept me out for an extra, I think, 2 or 3 weeks, even though it had healed and mended right. And then and then inside that, 2 years prior to that, when I first went to Loyola, I because when I was growing up, I wore, we always try to not wear big shoes, so I wore a shoe size too small, and I I had messed up my fifth metatarsal, and it calcified and it blocked, and I had to have surgery my first year at Loyola. But I played every game, but I had surgery at the beginning of the season, and so when I got to UNM, I told the doctors about it. I told Ed and everything during the physical, but I didn't think it'd be a problem. But in hindsight, the Converse were a great shoe, but somebody came down and I had no space for my foot to spread, and that's when I broke my foot. And Ed Toe just said, "Hey, look, I'm gonna keep you out a little longer." And it was really tough because I think we started off, I want to say 3-2 that season, I was so excited. I wanted to play with George. I was there the first year when I set out, I was a big part of them guys winning 24 games and 11 and going 24 and 11 or 24 and 12 that first year when I was sitting out because Kelvin Scarborough had pulled a hamstring, and so they had no point guards, and so I had to play point guard for 6 weeks against Phil, and that's how me and Phil became really close, and that's why we got that opportunity to go play overseas together. But anyway, back to the story. So, and my excitement of being a Lobo, and I think that year New Mexico State came in and I couldn't play, and they beat us, and and I knew those guys really well. I mean, I knew Patterson and Williams and all those guys. I knew those guys. I mean, to hang out with them every day. So I was like, okay, when can I play, Toe? He's like, no. So he gave me a target date, and then of course the coaches wanted me to come back a little earlier, just to get a game under my belt, which I think one of those games I think we lost. They put us at 3-2, but that first game I got a chance to go play down at New Mexico State, and I tell you, boy, I was so excited. Nobody knew what to expect. I love my teammates. We were very young, and matter of fact, when I transferred to New Mexico, I was the only sophomore. There was 7 freshmen, 7 seniors, and that was the last year of 15 scholarships players. So, but anyway, I tried to groom the young guys to work hard, play in the gym, do all those things. But when I got down there and I saw that crowd and how hostile they were throwing nickels at us. I mean, firing nickels and pennies, and you couldn't even walk to your bench. And I was like, oh, they fired me up. And I was, but I channeled it. I learned how to channel it. And I went down there. I had a great game. And I think I had 20 something and probably 7 or 8 rebounds. George Scott really played well. We got a lot of help from Sean Brooks, who was a freshman that had great potential. I had great potential, and of course, it was also frustrating that was the same year that Hunter Greene got hurt, who ended up being my roommate one year. Pulled his tore his Achilles, yeah, and then George and then the year before, yeah, that's right. I think George it was George's senior year, yeah. So, but anyway, no, it was a great experience, and then we came back and we won some games. Now, I think in that same season, I don't know if you remember this, Ed, but and of course we were I think we were as high as 3rd place that year, but we just we had a good preseason, lost a couple, but we didn't lose many we didn't lose them in the pit. I think 1 or 2 in the pit that year, but anyway we the game that I'm talking about and I'm referring to right now is that UTIP game. The cup.
Of course, yeah, I remember that. Of course, yeah. Never forget it.
I told those refs, and I used to talk to those refs when I was coaching. I just told them, you guys changed my life. You changed that team's life, because we were going down to the other end with a foul, shooting 2, not 1-1, shooting 2, and with a chance to build on the lead. And somehow, for some reason, Don Haskins the Bear was like, that UTIP in the pit was always, I mean, we could get a split. We can beat them at their place, but they were the ones that that rivalry, those 3 schools are just the most fun I've ever had in playing at the pit. I mean, as far as rivalry games and giving yourself a chance to make a difference. But that season was really great. We not disappointed, but coming off of Lobo Gate. I mean, the NCAA is lifting our opportunity to get a bid, but we're not really getting the consideration, because they should have, the year before when I was sitting out, they should have had a chance to that 24-11 was still impressive back then.
Yeah, there you go. They were real close. Johnny, just I wanted to refresh everybody's memory, and then Ryan will go to the next question. But Wayne Campbell was shooting 2 free throws, and someone threw a cup from the stands. Lobo fan, and they gave him 2 more free throws, and that was a big the cup incident at the pit will never be forgotten. And UTEP went on to win. So I wanted to remind everybody I'd never forget it. Ryan, go ahead.
Your senior season, you averaged 20 points. You almost averaged 21 points, had over 7 rebounds. UNM went 17-14, 500 in the WAC. You lost to Texas in the NIT, and the team struggled on the road. Talk a little bit about that season.
Well, that season, it's like I always say, when just being around basketball for so long, looking back at it, your mentality has to be, you have to find a way to, as playing professionally, this is what we always said, but looking back at my experience at UNM, our mentality, if we could have changed it a little bit more and toughened up and played like we played at home. People say it's hard. No, it's not hard. It's just you got the players have got to believe. The coaches can do all they want, but the players have to believe. And we didn't. If you ever understand about being uncomfortable, comfortable, being uncomfortable, that's the mentality you have to take on the road. And you don't have to do a lot of wolfing and talking, but you got to go out there and just play hard and believe. And once like Clayton, I watched your other show and I was listening to Clayton, but those guys knew their roles, they accepted their roles, they didn't find excuses. The staff is who they are. The players got to make the difference. You got to come together. You got to convince other players that you need them, and that we got to stick together. And it's us against the world. And we got to go in there, be coachable, listen, prepare, and believe me, winning becomes easy on the road. And we wasn't. I don't think we were. I ain't saying we weren't focused, but we didn't really believe deep down inside.
That leads me to my next question. I'm glad you said this, JB, because it's close. The Lobos are close to getting to the NCAA tournament. When you played the NIT, people forget that that time the NIT was a big deal. I think the field of NCAA was 48, or I think it wasn't 64, or what is it now? 64, right? It wasn't.
Yeah, it was 85 was the year they switched to 64 teams.
Okay, so the NIT was a big deal. It really was. But what do you think? You just mentioned it, Johnny. You've been around basketball a long time, coaching at several different places. We'll get to that later. What do you think it was that prevented UNM from reaching the NCAA during your 2 years there? Because it was close. The NIT was a well thought of tournament then and packed the pit when you played there. But what was it that prevented the Lobos from reaching the NCAA tournament, in your opinion?
I just think it's a lack of confidence. We didn't. I ain't saying we tried. We just didn't believe deep down inside. And I take the blame for that. And I'm not throwing nobody under the bus, but because we had the talent. We beaten those teams, and we've always gotten past that first one, and we just didn't believe. I don't think we believed it deep down inside.
You mentioned it's different on the road, JB. We know that. And you mentioned at the pit, and we'll get to the Lobos here in a bit. They were too comfortable against Air Force, and they got punched in the face, man. That's the way it is. So I think you're right about that. The comfort level at home, especially at the pit. Johnny, we asked Clayton, we asked Clayton about Dave Bliss. We've asked some of your teammates about Coach Coulson. You've heard some of these. I always send you every show we do. So we'd like to know from you, what kind of coach was Gary Coulson?
Gary Coulson was great. We've had people probably don't know this, but I had a great relationship with that guy, and I mean, he really helped me. But I took I took the initiative. You know, people are going to treat you. People are going to treat you on how hard you work, and you got to convince them that you want to be there, and you got to put the work in. And a lot of times, and I'm saying this, this was my thoughts back then. We can't sit around as players and try to be analytical of the coaching style. We made a choice to come here for whatever reason it is. You got to do your research. You got to do your homework, and we got to make the best of it. And we got to find a way to win, because I learned in high school, if you don't work hard, you don't win. The bottom line is you got to put the work in, and you got to block out all the minutia, and treat everybody with great respect, and be happy and smile and go to work and convince your teammates that when you get in the gym, you got to block out all the noise on the outside. And one thing I can say with my 2 years, you look at my record against Air Force, and I earned great respect from Coach Mitten at the time, because he knew one thing: no matter what, Greg Popovich was on that staff too. No matter what,
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Wow.
he told me this, no matter what, we was gonna prepare for you, that guy right there, because you know what? His will to win was, hey, if I had to do it myself, and I mean, you can go back and watch some of the films against Air Force. They are so tough. They protect our country. You can't sleep on those guys. Those guys don't care about size.
That's right.
They go into war for us. They're protecting us. Even though they're in the academy, their mentality is toughness. They don't size don't mean nothing. So they're gonna go through the wall. And that was my relationship with Gary. Gary helped me channel my not my anger, my frustration, because I couldn't find a way to get some players to work harder. And if you ask those guys back then, I spent so much time in the gym. You know, I knew back then you just couldn't do what you really wanted to do, and you get pigeonholed into positions. But even if you do, they still got you out there in the court. They still can't keep you out the gym from working on how to make a shot, how to make a post move, how to play defense. Now Gary, I mean, and my toughest thing with Gary was he sat me down one day and he said, "Hey, look, when I was such and such, I did this, and this, and I had a heart attack, and I'm a better person now, and I coach a little different than I used to then, and I want to push you guys, but I don't want to push too hard, and I'm gonna do what I have to do, and if the pieces fit in, they fit in, and whoever's working hard, they're gonna play. If they don't show me that they can do the job and put the work in, because back then you had no individual skill work, you had nobody get in the gym, catch your balls and do shots." But now the game's changed so much, and it's about how can you help a person become a pro, you know. So, but anyway, that was, and then so Gary had one thing to control my temper, which people don't really know. I get so angry because I can't get through to players to get them to work hard. I would want to fight them, you know. I just want to fight them. So Gary would do a whistle, you know, he go. But I look, and I went, you know, and he's pulling his ear. Please.
That is funny. I had no idea. That's funny.
Nobody's doing it.
Yeah, that's funny, because I saw you get mad at Johnson more than once, man, you know, and with that big body, you could have hurt a lot of people, and you didn't, thank God, you know. But we still laugh about that time Stan Wisnett wanted to fight you. Dr. Stan Wisnett, and he Stan would have fought anybody. That was the Stan had that kind of heart. Great answer there, Johnny. Go ahead, Ryan. You got the next one.
You've already kind of mentioned some of these guys, Hunter Greene, Kelvin Scarborough, George Scott. George Scott was there on Saturday at the the alumni when UNM honored Ben's basketball alumni at halftime. Mike Winters, we've had quite a few of those guys on the show. My time at the Daily Lobo, I knew Kelvin Scarborough was pretty outspoken, which was awesome. Those guys, and we've had George Scott, and then Hunter Greene's obviously with Rob Portnoy. He's the play-by-play, he's the color commentator. We've talked to Mike Winters, George Scott, but and a lot of them are recognized as very formidable, great players within the program at the time they played. Talk about playing with them.
Oh, I tell you, Mike Winters, 6'8", inside out guy, local kid, grew up there, loved it, and like he told you the guys of the story. Well, really, the truth of the whole matter was when I got to UNM, when I flew in, got with my 2 luggage, and I didn't have a dorm room. And I went in to check in and everything, and they said we don't have a room for you. So guess what? I just asked one of the players, "Hey, can I put my bags in your room?" And I gotta get out. I gotta go look at this campus. I gotta meet the players. So I left my bags. I left both my tin cans there, and in actuality, I ended up sleeping on Mike's floor. Mike would go home all the time, and I stayed there a couple of nights until they got my room sorted out, and we became really good friends. And of course, he knew Albuquerque really well, and so I leaned on him a lot. And then George Scott, great guy. I had so much fun. I probably, I say I, but I don't like to use I all the time. But myself, I would say that I got along with every player, and in the gym, I was a different beast. If you didn't come to work hard, I had a problem with you. And eventually, at some point, either you're gonna be on my team or you're gonna be against me. And if you do anything that's gonna cause havoc, you was gonna hear it from me. Other than that, I never really questioned anybody. I tried to hang out with everybody at some point in time. George had a girlfriend back then, and I was looking for a girlfriend. Sort of, I thought I was. I asked him, could he get his girlfriend to hook me up with a good girl?
Did he?
Niles Dockery was a good guy. I love hanging out with D Love. Matter of fact, I have a picture one day when my first year, because the seniors, the 7 seniors never hung out with those guys, and those seven freshmen, when we had to go to study hall, I used to always talk to them and tell them about my experiences at this level, and they were like, I said, look, man, you guys got to stick together. You got to get in the gym. You got to play on Saturdays. You got to get up in the morning. Don't lay in that bed. Let's get better. And I can get the New York guy, the DC guy, and Kelvin Scarborough, Larry Markland, Rich Merritt, the guys that didn't work out.
I remember Rich. Yeah, I remember all those guys, man. All those guys.
Paul Connery.
The Englishman. Yeah. You brought them all together. Johnny, we're on a kind of a time limit with Ryan going back to work, so we're going to cut some of these questions. But okay. We do want to know about these things. Georgetown, 1985, memories of that game. We talked to Mike Winters about it. George Scott. Mike Winters said there was people on the. You gave him a hell of a game, right? A hell of a game. Talk a little bit about that memory there against Georgetown in the Pit. You've got plenty of. You mentioned against UTEP. Talk a little bit about that game against Georgetown in the Pit in 1985.
Hey, at times when I get alone, my ears ring because of that. That's how loud it was in there. And every time we had them on the ropes, John Thompson would call a timeout. And we'd look down there, and those guys wasn't in the huddle. They were down there sucking oxygen. We thought we had them. And I told the guys, I said, look, man, look, we could get these guys. And Calvin, I mean, the experience was just unbelievable. I mean, I had good numbers, John. But the one thing that George said, I even have a picture of George Gordon, Patrick, and of course I had played against Patrick in high school. He came out to California to play some of our big centers, and I got a chance to play in that All-Star game. But he was a force. But anyway, Georgetown they just had so much talent and so much depth. And even though we could run them down, we just couldn't run them down. They just every time that horn blows, that ball stop, a dead ball, they would send another 4 or 5 in, and then Pat was at the hole, but we stopped him. We didn't let him dunk on us. Matter of fact, nobody got a dunk on us. And they had a great power forward in Billy Martin and Dalton, the center, the backup. He was a big body. I mean, he's 6'10", 6'11", big body. But we played well and hard. It was an up and down game. It was a kind of game that the pit really enjoys watching. We just came out on the wrong end of it, but it was such a great experience, and people have talked about it for ages. Even some guys when I played professionally in the World Basketball League, guys were like, man, I saw you guys. And I said, y'all, you guys, you would not believe that place and the atmosphere and the 18,000 people that show up there day in, day out. And they just support you like crazy, and everlasting memories in the pit.
I was there that night. I'll tell you one thing: the Georgetown players in the paper the next day said they couldn't even hear in the huddle, and so they couldn't even hear. George said he couldn't hear in your huddle either, George Scott. But in 1986, you were drafted in the 7th round by the Los Angeles Clippers and played professionally for many years. You mentioned playing with Phil in England, Phil Smith, the great Lobo point guard. Tell us about your experience though in the World Basketball League. It's kind of funny. Greg Brown's calling me right now, the former Lobo. So he's not watching you, but he's calling me right now. But anyway, talk about your experience in playing in the World Basketball League and professionally. You mentioned playing with Phil in England. Talk a little bit about that. The World Basketball League was something else. You sent me an article on it.
Yes, I did. We actually get that article from Sports Illustrated in 1989, August. Great story. Of course, we all measure out at probably 6'5" and 3/4 or 6'4" and something. But initially, I got drafted. I was a 17th pick. Normally when you get drafted in any level, I got drafted. I played in the CBA too. I got drafted. I was one of 3 draftees in the CBA. Played for Herb Brown. But back to the World Basketball League, I got drafted, and I played for a great coach that was that had played small ball with Nevada Reno, Sonny Smith. Also coached at SMU before Dave Bliss. So he was a great coach. Got a signing bonus. Great experience. I didn't think I was going to make the team because once you start going out trying out professionally, it's crazy. But they draft people and then they bring people in to get themselves ready for the draftees and the team that they want to assemble. So it's like there's about 10 or 15 guys or 20 guys sometimes. Like on the CBA, I went there 60 guys for one spot to try out with the 20 guys that's coming in for 10 spots. And I'm like, for a tryout spot, I'm like, whoa. So anyway, I made it. Great experience. And in the inaugural year, we played 54 games. We played against Kiev, 2 Russian teams, China, Germany, Spain. Got a chance to play against Venus Sabonis in his prime.
That's awesome.
Woo! But anyway, yeah, and I made it. We won.
That guy was unbelievable. Yeah, he was unbelievable, man. You spent a lot of years doing that. We got a couple questions left for you, Ryan. Do you mind if I go ahead?
Go ahead.
Okay, JB, a little known fact. Okay, you coached in many places. We're going to get to that. What your opinion is of the Lobos here in a second. But you coached JT Toppin's father in college. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because you told me what kind of player he was. I don't think people would equate that. You coached JT Toppin's father. Tell us what kind of player he was.
I'm still trying to make sure. I'm trying to make sure that I'm right on that, but it's Ed. But his name was Obadiah Toppin, and he was 6'8" and slim. Didn't even look like a player, but he could shoot the ball, and he can get to the hole, and he can change a team's level. And we went 13-1, and when I was in JUCO with him at Eastern Oklahoma College. Just a great player. Matter of fact, he had a following. I mean, he wasn't even there before he played a game, and everybody was saying O-Town, O-Town, Toppin, O-Town, O-Town, Toppin, because he got people to come to our practice. He worked so hard. You couldn't keep him in front of you, and you couldn't stop him from getting the rebound, and he was great around the basket. But he was slim. He didn't look like an inside player. He just looked like
lefty, like his son, or no? He wasn't a lefty, right? He was not. He was a lefty. Oh man. Oh wow. Okay. So you saw some similarities with him and JT then, the abilities and skills.
Yeah, I'm trying to make sure that that is his son, if it's not his nephew. But the same.
I think his dad is Obi Toppin's dad, not JT Toppin's dad. I'm looking it up now.
Okay, so nephew then?
Is it Obi?
Yeah, I found Obadiah Toppin, which is JT Toppin, the kid who went to Dayton, and he played for the Knicks, and I think he's with the Pacers now. I think that's his dad.
Okay, and that's it. Yeah,
okay, but that was still it sounded like a pretty good story there.
Actually, it was JT's Toppin. Well, yeah, you're right. But it was Obadiah Toppin though. Yeah.
You played. You've also you coached at Fresno, assistant coach at Fresno State, Montana State, Northern Iowa, Texas A&M, New Mexico Junior College. You've been an assistant coach at a lot of different places. You're out of the coaching business now. Tell us a little bit briefly about that coaching experience. Do you want to get back in it? But you were an assistant in many places.
Before I tell you, I just want to touch on one thing. When Fresno State, when I was with Gary, when I got my first D1 job with Gary at Fresno State, and we came in there, and they had the tournament at the pit. I know they had the tournament at the pit for a couple of years, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But that first year with Gary, we lost the game, and of course Gary moved on. And the toughest thing was to come back there as an assistant coach, knowing that you're sitting on that end that you're probably going to get beat. It just ain't no way you're going to win in here. So fast forward to the next year, I end up staying around, and I knew Jerry Tarkanian real well, and we take you guys. Now we take the same guys that Gary had, and add one player, and become a 20-something team winner, just on hard work. And then we almost beat you guys in the regular season. In the regular season at the pit, we beat you guys at our place, and then in the tournament, that 3 overtime.
Oh man,
I'm on the end of a bad call, but I'm happy for you guys internally, but I'm sad for us because I saw the 180-degree turnaround from a bunch of guys that didn't play for a guy that cared about him, and he got let go, and we came in there and was a different team and had a chance to beat you guys with Kenny and them. And I mean that corner that was the ghost call, by the way. But anyway,
Yeah, I remember that vaguely. Came out of the paper. Yeah.
I was on the wrong end of it, but I was happy for the Lobos. But anyway, so yeah, coaching has been a passion of mine. I've been a coach as a player, professionally. I was a coach in the World Basketball League when I played. I worked with a guy that coached Ron Greene, who coached Larry Bird. So I know I can one day become a head coach. The dream is still alive. I love coaching. I really appreciate the opportunities that I had. And if you look at my career, I've been with a lot of great coaches, but a lot of those great coaches have been a lot older and close to most of them close to the end of their career, which is something somebody told me one day, and they looked at it and said, "You're not a bad guy. You just been on the end of coaches at the end of their career." I mean, even when I got with Tark, he was, he just came off winning a national championship, and he was removed for 2 years, and he gets his opportunity to go back and coach at his alma mater, and he got him to the tournament. And I was a big part of that because I helped him in the transitional phase of showing his guys as assistants and everybody, and getting them familiar with the campus and the people to talk to and the things they need to do to make a difference, and getting them aware of helping them with recruiting and everything like that. So.
You had some great experiences with your coaching career, man. And you coached with some great coaches, no doubt about it. One question left for you, JB. You mentioned to me the other night you still watch the Lobos. You said to me there was nothing like being a Lobo. You said that. You texted me that. You never forgot your experience about being a Lobo in the pit. You're still a proud Lobo. You watched New Mexico this season. What's your opinion? They lost the Air Force. You mentioned, and you put it very bluntly. They defend our country, man. Air Force punches New Mexico in the face the other day, and it's a humiliating loss. It was. Let the air out of the NCAA bubble for now. They can maybe salvage a couple of things. Win on 2 on the road. Win here at home. They're back in the saddle again. What's your opinions about the Lobos this season?
Well, I tell you, and I can give you this a little bit because I watched more than enough games, and I'm not, I'm sort of critiquing from not a coach's point, but just a fan, an avid fan that loves what they're doing. I actually watched them in the tournament last year. Coach Patino did a great job last year, and he went out and addressed a lot of his needs. And those guys have got to keep the mindset, because when I look at you possibly making a tournament in this day and age, you still got to have a good road record. And that he lost the game, and then he came back against Nevada and made some adjustments and with his rotation, and they came through. And I think it's a two-way street. The coaches got to trust the players, and the players have got to trust the coaches more and listen and be coachable, but give the effort every night that they gave against Nevada Reno. Because that was an awesome game. It almost got away from them, but at the end of the day, they made the adjustments. They played some guys. They believed in some guys, and whether it was injuries or not, but you got to trust each other, and you can't give any more home games away, and you got to go out there, and you're going to have to win some games in the tournament. You're going to have to get to the final. I think you have to at least get to the semis or the finals
to get in the tournament. They're squarely on the bubble, so you feel like that, and they can do it. There's no question. It's not as if they can't do it. We know they can. We'll see what if they can. Ryan, go ahead. You want to wrap it up here?
I apologize for the time constraints, Johnny. I really appreciate your time. He in 2 years with the UNM basketball team, again, he scored over 1,157 points. That's 20 points a game, 5th best in UNM history. And he was drafted by the Clippers in the 1986 NBA draft. His name is Johnny Brown. I really want to thank you for your time today. That was a great conversation and some awesome stories about your former players, and then you're throwing in Tark. I'm fascinated by all things. Now I'm a UNM alumni, but I've always been fascinated by all things UNLV because given where it is and where it sits, and then there was a 30 for 30 on one of the players that transferred from BC who had like a heroin addiction, and he played for Fresno State, and I always forget his
Chris
name.
Herron. Chris Herron.
Chris Herron. Yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
why I always forget his name, but the Tark years there because I'm a big my degree from UNM says history on it, so I'm fascinated by all those things. But I want to thank you for your time today. It was much appreciated, and I learned more about UNM history in the 80s now and post Lobo Gate than I ever had. So I really appreciate your time today. I'm sorry we had to cut it short.
Okay, it's all right. Hey, but before we go,
No,
one
good.
small thing. This is how small the coaching world is. Do you know who we made the call to get Chris Herron from BC? Rick Pitino.
Wow.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, that does get small then. That's
crazy.
crazy.
That's crazy,
Well,
JB. That's crazy.
Isn't that crazy?
No, well,
That is.
well, thank you for joining us here on the Pit Press podcast. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. You take care. Love you guys in Lobo land. And I'll be at the tournament. I sure will. I'll be at the tournament. Let's win it.
Thanks, JB.